Just check my numbers before bed. Let's see what we got here. That can't be right. What the hell? Holy shit, I got 1 million subscribers overnight. Bill and Ted went viral, 1 million subscribers. Oh, son of a bitch. Oh, there you are. Don't fail me now. Fuck it. Inception tells the story of a group of thieves who typically extract ideas from a person's subconscious are hired to implant an idea. Well, here we are again, everybody, continuing on with the Christopher Nolan review series. If you're just now joining me, I've reviewed all of the Christopher Nolan films up to this point. I'm going to be ending with Tenet. Hopefully, if I can get the next 2 reviews out after this one, actually the next 3 reviews out before I see it and review it on Tuesday, but a couple of them might fall after that, but they will be done this week. So, Inception. This is a movie that, quite honestly, I'm not even going to beat around the bush, is one of the most incredible movies that I've ever seen in my life. And no matter how many times I rewatch it, it's one of those movies that I love more every single time. I actually had the chance to see this early in theaters. Back when I used to work at a skating rink, there was a person there that was in film school that we have here in SCAD, and they had access to a bunch of early screening tickets, so I got to go see it with them like 3-4 days before everybody else. And man, you want to talk about a movie that you go and see and you cannot wait to discuss it with everybody, and the rest of that week waiting for anybody that I knew to go see it so that I could discuss it was an agonizing couple of days. But along with being a part of my Christopher Nolan review series, this is also a very long-awaited Patreon pick from what might have been my first Patreon or one of my first Patreons, and he's also a good friend, which is Al Seward, which is a channel over there called Dark Side Reviews. If you guys have not subscribed to that, I'll put his link down below. Go ahead and check him out. But Al has been a friend, acquaintance on YouTube since the early days, since like I started YouTube. Whenever I first started hanging out with Sean Chandler and Durber and all of them, Al was right there in the mix of all of that as well. And he wanted me to do Inception for quite a while, and one thing that he definitely wanted me to hone on was my thoughts on the ending. So I'm going to keep this mostly spoiler free because this is a movie that has so many intricacies that if you haven't seen it, I definitely want you to, but I will have a segment at the end that I'll give you a warning for that I will go in depth with the ending and my thoughts on it. So thank you, Al, for your support as always, my friend. And finally, here's the Inception review. So starting right off with the positives for Inception, the main one is just how incredibly genius the idea for this movie is. I mean, this movie balances so many different things, and when you start thinking about just writing a script and filmmakers coming up with this idea and being able to execute on this level of perfection, it's nothing short of amazing. I mean, this movie is 10 years old now, and I still watch it and I just marvel at how somebody could come up with a concept like this that works so well, that has so many complexities and intricacies and so many different things woven into the story that it all is pulled off as well as it is. So execution and concept, bar none, this might be the best as far as Nolan's movies go. And going along with that is how well Christopher Nolan is able to film and visualize this world that he's trying to bring us into, where multiple layers of dreams is a reality, and people being able to drop down into different levels, and the rules and intricacies and, you know, the psychological, the psychology and the science that goes into all of these dream levels, and being able to bring that forth to a way that's not a movie that 5% of the world can understand. It's a movie that's actually, you know, requires a couple of viewings, but it's a movie that any average person can watch, follow along with, understand the rules, and enjoy the hell out of the ride that this movie takes you on. And it's amazing for a filmmaker to be able to do that, for a filmmaker to be able to take a script, to take a concept like this, and give you visualizations of a train going through the middle of a New York City avenue, or an elevator that drops down between all these different dream layers where you have a train going this way, you have a beach on one level, you have a hotel on the other, and even when you get into limbo and visualizing that entire thing where it's just unconstructed dream space where you can bring literally everything to life like a sandbox. It's all brilliant. And I love the characters and the actors that bring these characters to life in this movie. You have this band of misfits, these thieves, and whenever you have a heist film, a lot of the heart of that film depends on how well you like these characters, how much you can get onto their side, because even though they're technically criminals doing illegal things, if it's a group of people that you enjoy and you like their characters and you kind of root for them, you don't get lost in the morals of the entire thing, and you're easily able to go along with the ride of the story.
Mr. Saito, we can train your subconscious to defend itself from even the most skilled extractor.
How can I do that?
Because I am the most skilled extractor.
And Inception is one of those movies that does that very well. I mean, you got Leonardo DiCaprio in here in the role of Cobb as your lead. He's awesome because you really feel for his situation where he's not allowed to go home, not allowed to see his kids because of something that happened with his wife that the movie slowly unfolds throughout the runtime. And he's trying to put it all on the line for this one mission to be able to get the chance to go home. And as a father, I mean, even just a regular person, even if you don't have kids, you can get behind that storyline and you really emotionally tie yourself to his journey and to his mission. And then the rest of his team is filled out by just a bunch of great actors. You got Joseph Gordon-Levitt as kind of like his right-hand man, and he's great. I believe this was the first time that he came into Nolan, so he's awesome as an addition here. Of course, Tom Hardy. You guys know I love Tom Hardy. I'm an absolute Tom Hardy whore, and this was one of the first times that I saw him. He's great in here, brings that kind of British charm to his character to where he's very smart, but he just kind of has this little bit of a smart-ass attitude too, especially his interaction with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
What's a kick?
This, Ariadne, would be a kick.
Ellen Page is really good in here as kind of the new addition to the team, the person who's going to be the architect and, you know, create all of these dreams, and she's the one, you kind of absorb the movie's storyline and its rules through her to a certain degree, because as she's being introduced to this world, we're along for the ride and kind of learning alongside with her. And even going past the team, when you get like Ken Watanabe, who is kind of part of the team, but he's also the one who is fueling this mission, so he's pulling the strings to a degree and along for the ride to a degree. Cillian Murphy, or Killian Murphy, I can never know how exactly you say his name. He's great anytime he works with Nolan, and he's the subject of this mission. He's awesome to see. He could have easily been a character that you don't really care about, you don't really attach yourself to, because he's kind of the mark. He's the one that they're trying to manipulate. But as you kind of get to the intricacies of what they're gonna have to do to get into his head and the relationship with his father, and by the end of the movie, you're kind of just as emotionally tied to his journey as you are Cobb's. And one of the more fun aspects of Inception, which is why it's so awesome to rewatch, is that there's so many different subgenres that are kind of balanced in this one movie, because at its core, it's a heist film, but there's also a very huge sci-fi influence here as far as the whole concept of extraction and inception and how all that works. Then you have very much like this James Bond style thing going on along with the heist, to where they're trying to steal stuff, but in order to actually steal or implant this idea, they're kind of like secret agents, especially when you get to the third dream and they're going in like this snow-covered mountain and they're skiing down the hill and shooting at guards, and it's very much plays like a spy action movie.
Mustn't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
There's some action thriller stuff in there involved with like the first half of the movie whenever they're arranging the team, and there's these huge corporations that have a price on Leonardo DiCaprio's head and he's being chased off and on throughout the movie. And talking for a moment specifically on like the action thriller stuff, the action in this movie is awesome. It's actually kind of frustrating how awesome it is, because as much as I'll bitch in some of the Dark Knight movies about how the action is filmed, mostly just because of the fight choreography, when you get to a movie like this, it's like, well damn, Nolan can brilliantly put together action. What happened in those movies? If you agree with that. So you get to Inception, and from the shootouts to the chase scenes to like the random things like the train coming through whenever they finally start their little Inception mission, all the way to probably the most memorable sequence where it's like that zero gravity fight scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt where, you know, the kick has already started, this van is rolling, and then the deeper level of the dream, the gravity's all fucked up, and he's got to fight this guy in this hallway of a hotel room where the hotel room is spinning, and he's got to, you know, jump to this wall and fight the guy, and then they're falling, and he's trying to grab the gun, but the gun shoots this way. It's an incredible sequence. There's even some horror elements in there when you start getting into the story involving with Leonardo DiCaprio's wife, played by Marion Cotillard, where there's like this whole underlying story that slowly pieces itself together throughout the film, and she's kind of like this ghost that haunts him. Every time he tries to get something done, she shows up and screws it up, to where, kind of going along with that Bond theme, in the beginning of the movie when you're not quite up to date on what the story is, she almost seems like somebody that's double-crossed him, and, you know, one of the Bond girls that turns out to be a Bond bad guy, and it has that whole flavor to her. But throughout the movie, she becomes more of a scary and terrifying presence, especially when the heightened tension is going on in this movie, and you know you're really into the story, and you get to the final act, and it's like down to the wire, and shit is just rising like crazy, and you're sitting there just glued to the screen trying to see if they're going to be able to get this mission pulled off, and then she comes in, and you're like, fuck, no, not her.
Killing him would just wake him up. But pain. The pain is in the mind.
And one thing that I noticed, especially on this most recent rewatch, because I actually watched this after The Dark Knight Rises. You're going to see that review come out afterwards, obviously, but I was more in the mood to go from Dark Knight to Dark Knight Rises than I was to skip that. So I watched Dark Knight Rises, I watched this, and not to spoil one of my negatives with Dark Knight Rises, but the pacing on that movie is very slow, and I would say the movie feels overly long. And I was actually shocked by the end of Inception when I looked it up, and this movie is only 2 minutes shorter than The Dark Knight Rises. But Inception moves the entire time. The pacing in Inception is incredible because there is no point in this movie, even in some of the slower moments, where you feel bored, or you feel like it's in a lull, or they're starting to lose your attention, or it feels like it's oddly paced, or there's something going on, or can we get another action scene? It's nothing like that. From the time the movie starts all the way to the time the credits go, you are just full on blast with this movie, and at no point do they lose that. It's incredibly paced. And I also have to give huge kudos, because for as much as I might bitch about logic issues when it comes to certain movies, which is a subjective thing, some movies it works, some movies it doesn't, we can all disagree and agree on that until we're all dead. Inception is one of those movies that has so many rules that it has to set up, so many little things that you have to understand, so many things that have to make sense to you quickly, and you have to remember throughout the movie, and especially upon rewatch, whenever you know these rules going in, and you can even closer examine this movie to the point where it would be much more easier to find flaws with the logic going on. I've rewatched this movie so many times, and they do an amazing job at setting up all of these rules that make perfect sense within the context of the film, and they give you just enough information to make you carry along with it and go, okay, I get what you're going for, and I understand, but they leave just enough of it vague to where it doesn't paint themselves into a corner to where they're so specific with how things are supposed to work that things start to fall apart. Because I've never watched this movie with the purpose of tearing it apart and trying to find holes in their logic, but as many times as I've rewatched it, there has never been a single scene that stood out like, wait, okay, that doesn't make sense this time. I need an answer for that. It works. The entire movie, all the rules come together, and at no point when I watch it do I think that it has a logic gap. For as intricate as this thing is, it's put together so brilliantly that it works from start to finish.
You create the world of the dream. We bring the subject into that dream, and they fill it with their subconscious.
And one thing that I've always loved about this movie too is the score. I don't know how many times I've mentioned scores in this review series. Christopher Nolan's always done really well at having scores for his films. Inception is one of my favorite film scores of all time. It's just so powerful and iconic, like to the thing that, you know, it kind of became a joke to a degree with the trailers, but that huge boom that kept going in the beginning of the movie and at certain scenes throughout the film. But the spot where it really hits me is in the final 5 minutes or so, whenever they're in the airport and Cobb is trying to get through customs, and the score is just kind of slowly rising for like a good 2-3 minutes all the way to the final reels of the film. I think that score is just so emotional. I mean, it pulls all the emotions that the story is trying to pull out of you just with the sounds, and it is one of my favorite film scores. let's talk about the ending of this film. Spoiler warning if you want to stay spoiler free. I don't know what the fuck you've been doing where you haven't seen Inception in the past 10 years, but for the couple of you that would bitch in the comment section if I don't give you a spoiler review, there it is. The ending of this film is absolute perfection. Again, I'm going to use that word a lot talking about this movie because I think it's perfection. But you get to the end, and not only does it wrap up the story so well, but it keeps that mind-bending aspect to it to a degree to where it has visuals that create conversation. It's one of the biggest things that people will walk away from this movie wanting to talk about after the first time that they've seen it. And it's funny to me because I totally get behind that whole thing about being, asking questions about the ending. Did he make it out of the dream? Is he still stuck in the dream? Is that top ever going to topple? And the funny thing to me is anybody that, especially now 10 years later, still holds onto that question has completely missed the whole point of that ending. Yes, purposefully, Christopher Nolan filmed it and cut it off at a certain point to give people that question, to give people that doubt. Did he make it? Did he succeed in his mission? Or is he still stuck in the dream world and we'll never know? And I get that for the first viewing, maybe even the second viewing, but when you really start looking at the character of Cobb, and who he is and how well they set him up throughout the movie, especially in the first half where they show you his habits, to where every single time he comes out of a dream or a mission or a test or whatever where he is under, he always spins that top and is damn near hyperventilated until it topples over and he is reassured that he's made it back and he is in reality and he no longer questions that. Partially because of mostly, if not entirely, because of the entire experience he had with his wife where they were stuck in limbo for 50 years, and over time he started to understand that they were not in reality and had to force her by Inception to believe the same thing, which eventually led to her death in reality. That whole experience has made him to where when he comes out, he does question for a bit. Am I still in the dream or am I in reality? And he's done it so long and gone so deep that those lines have blurred so badly. And when you understand the character and how that paralyzing paranoia that he has about being stuck in the dream world consumes him so badly that the only thing that trumps that paranoia and that consumption of that idea is getting back to his children. When you get to the final reel of the film and you see that he is there and he sees his kids outside, he's with Michael Caine, and he finally takes his top out, spins it on the table, and he looks, and the whole movie he's been talking about wanting to get back to see his kids' face because whenever he had to leave immediately, he wanted to call out to them and they ran away and he never got to see their face for that one final time. When they go and they turn their face and he runs out and embraces them, he's not paying attention to the top at all. It's the farthest thing from his mind. He doesn't care whether he's in reality or he's in a dream anymore. That is the point of the ending. Not whether or not he's in a dream or not. It's the fact that he no longer questions his reality. If you want to go a step further, the movie has plenty of hints out there that shows you that he did in fact make it back, he did succeed, and he did make it to reality. His wedding ring. His wedding ring is his totem. If you pay attention to the movie, there's a spot where he's talking about totems and he has the top and he says, this was Maul's, this was my wife's. He never says what his totem was. That becomes his totem after his wife's death. That was the way that he kind of determines reality from the dream. But his wedding ring is his actual totem. And if you look at the movie, every single time that he's in a dream sequence, he has his wedding ring on. Every single time that he's in reality, the wedding ring is gone. So if you look at the final scene, he doesn't have his wedding ring on. And if you pay attention, which will take multiple viewings to the events of the film, you can follow even without that he made it out of reality. But that's my big thoughts on the ending. Did he make it out of the dream? Did he not make it out of the dream? What's the answer? The answer is, it doesn't matter. He just no longer questions his reality. So all in all, guys, Inception is easily one of my favorite films of all time. I think it's absolute brilliance. I think it's perfection from start to finish. There's nothing about this movie that I hold as a flaw. I'm sure if I studied it and tried my best to find something, I could find some little tiny hole to poke into it. But the movie is paced so well, written so well, acted so well, directed so well, conceived so well, that any flaws that it has, it masks and hides so well that I don't even care. I don't see them, and I'll probably never see them. This is a hell of a thrill ride, a hell of a concept that's just brilliantly brought to life by Christopher Nolan, and it's gonna be damn hard for him to ever top this movie, because between this and another movie, it might be my #1 Christopher Nolan movie that I measure most of his films against. Tenet seems like it's got a lot of things that seem similar to Inception, so maybe that's him kind of going back to that type of film. We'll see. I don't know anything about the story. I'm trying my best to stay blind. But Inception, holy shit, what a movie. So if you guys like Christopher Nolan, if you want to see what he can do with a heist film and wildly different concepts of what you can do with a heist film, absolutely check out Inception. Check it out 2 or 3 times so you can catch every little detail that he has in there, but it is so worth being part of your collection. So check this thing out, go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of Inception? Are you somebody like me that thinks that this thing is absolute brilliance, one of the greatest films ever made? Is it too intricate and too complicated for you and you don't enjoy watching it whatsoever? Let me know that opinion down below. I can kind of understand that if you can explain that, but everybody, tell me what your thoughts are on Inception. Are you excited for Tenet? And are you excited for the Dark Knight Rises review? Because that comes very soon. Got a lot to talk about with that one. Let me know. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button so you can check out all of my other Christopher Nolan reviews as well as the one that's coming in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.